Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Canton III, and we are here to review the 33rd film, 33, Jesus, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, The Marvels, directed by Nia DaCosta. Happy to have this panel here with us today. First, the super producer, Jake Christie. Jake, how are you?
I'm doing well. I was just saying, it's always great to talk about a new movie. We only get a couple of them a year, and thankfully I like this one, because it's not fun to talk about a new movie if it's bad. I'll say that.
Oh, yes, that is for sure. We do have two guests, two friends of the show, two previous guests. First, Leah Marilla Thomas. She is a nerdalist. I used this with Hunter Radisi a couple of weeks ago. So I figured now, Leah, when I asked you before and I called you a nerd journalist, now I'm going to properly combine the two. You are a nerdalist. How are you doing tonight?
Very nerdily, I must say.
Yes.
Pretty good.
I love the energy. And also, friend of the show, basically our matriarch on Discord, Cecelia Stokes. Cecelia, how you doing?
I am so honored to be christened matriarch. It's the one identity category that I've been trying to build for myself my whole life. So I wear it with honor.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, and we have this positive energy here, and I want to just quickly get into everybody's theater experience, and we try and get a little bit more traditional as we usually do on this show when it comes to the movies. We want to go through everybody's theater experience. So, Cecelia, I will start with you. What was the vibe like? What was the energy like? And how'd you feel about it?
So I live in Madison, Wisconsin, which should probably provide as much context as like one would need. But we also went to like the 3:30 Thursday showing. And
everyone was already shit-faced.
Everyone was already shit-faced and not there. So it was pretty empty. I saw some more people coming in for the showing after us. It was a smaller crowd. I went with, my husband was out of town, so my brother-in-law was in town for work, so he came with us, and me and my two kids, Rosa and Henry, who were 7 and 8. And we had a great time. It was really interesting. Timmy, my brother-in-law, hadn't seen anything post Endgame, so he was like, I don't know what's going on. And I was like, well, Brent left town for work, and I've got a ticket, so take it. And so that was interesting. He had some interesting insight in that regard. So it was a little lacking. I'm not gonna lie. It was a little disappointing, but.
Gotcha. And Leah, how about you? I know you went to a critic screening of this, correct?
Yes. I'll do my bragging out of the way. So I went to the New York press screening, at which they put in the IMAX at Lincoln Center, which is, I believe, the largest screen in New York City.
It's the largest screen, I think, on the East Coast.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It's huge. And so I was a little bit nervous, given like the temperature of critics that I'd, been taking throughout the week. And I did hear some kind of like annoying chatter before the movie started behind me. And then when the lights went out, some people went, woo! And I said, oh, that's interesting. And then there was a decent amount of like good laughter and good responses, and it was quite enjoyable ultimately. And then I saw it again over the weekend, but it was at an Alamo Draft House, so people are eating and drinking, and so it was not quite as active, but still fine. People seemed happy enough.
Cool. And Jake, how about you?
So I also saw it at the Lincoln Center IMAX. That's where I see basically any big movie. Any movie that's going to have anything in IMAX, I see it there because, just because of FOMO. I'm just terrified that it'll be slightly better if I see it. You know what I mean? I just don't want someone to say, it was so good at the Lincoln Center IMAX. You should have seen it there. I saw it with friend of the show, Michael Springthorpe. It was a really fun time. Because the thing about that, like, theater, like, that theater will be packed no matter what. Like, we saw a sold out Beau Was Afraid screening in that theater, so like any movie is gonna be full. So There was a lot of laughter, and it was just like, I think it was pretty clear that by then, like the good thing about it is that people who are there want to be there for opening night. And while I can sometimes find like MCU superfans a little much, I would much rather see it with them than see it with people who are kind of like on the fence about it. And then I ended up seeing it again on Saturday morning at 11:30 at my local theater, the Regal Kaufman Astoria, which, not to dox myself, is within like 10 minutes. So that's why I see everything there. And the theater was almost completely empty because it was 11:30. It was an 11:30 screening on a Saturday, and there was a 12:30 RPX screening. So like, there's no reason for me to go to the one I did, but there was a small child in the audience who kept asking his mom where the Avengers were, and so that was nice. But yeah, overall, I think I was glad I went to the IMAX one because I could tell the movie would be. I'm glad I saw it with a lot of laughter because it is such a joyful experience of a movie, you know.
And I will say that if there's any laughter at a press screening, that's kind of a win, because I've been to some where people are so into their job that you feel kind of crazy if you're the only one reacting to things like a normal audience member would. So we did it.
Yeah, no, it's good to always have good energy. I went to Sheepshead Bay IMAX Thursday at 3:10. Actually, I was surprised at how many people were there. It was a decent, like, almost full theater for the most part for a 3:10 showing, especially on a school day. So I thought that was interesting. I thought the energy was pretty good. There were a decent amount of laughter. I think there were obviously some mark out moments. People obviously went nuts at the post credits scene and stuff like that. But I thought it was better energy than I expected, because it's not even, because what was the movie before this? Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh, that's right, I saw that screening with Hunter, but after the fact I still saw it the same weekend it came out again, and that one had, and I wouldn't say like not bad energy, but obviously it's a different tone of movie. But this one, it just, the best way to describe it is kind of the way that Jake, you could see the smile on his face as he talks about his theater experience, is there was a palpable energy to this film, which allows me to transition into our general thoughts on the film. And I'll actually go first here, and I'll just say that, admittedly, when this movie started, I was like, okay, there's a lot going on. It's happening very fast, and like from an editing standpoint, I would say like that's like my one real critique of the film. Like there is just like certain points where I feel like scenes kind of jumped here, jumped there, and I was like, okay, I was getting a little worried. But then it's like started to cool down, started to simmer down, and we got to the basics and really focused on the three leads. And I think that is where the movie is at its best, where not just singularly but collectively, I really enjoyed their chemistry. It really pops off the screen for me. Iman Vellani, I can't say enough. We'll talk about her later, but my goodness, like when I go into like basketball comps, like I'll say like LeBron 09, 10, like when he's at, when you're talking about youthful LeBron, where
no, I'm thinking before that. I'm thinking the 25 straight points get the Pistons.
Like, oh, you thinking 07?
Yeah, early.
Nah, like, you know what it is? Because I'm thinking like the Eastern Conference Finals 2009 against the Magic, right, where he averaged like 35, 7, and 7. I know you don't understand this.
Sorry.
No, I apologize. There's actually going to be more references that I have that y'all are not going to understand later in this podcast, but I just got to keep going. But that's kind of like from an energy standpoint, like from her, and just there's a lot of fun. The Khan family is just so cool to be around. Stuff like that. Different tone of Nick Fury in this movie, which I know some people are like thrown off. They do the whole, well, why wasn't he like that in Secret Invasion? Why was there no transition? But listen, man, this is different movies, different energy. Come on, let's chill out.
What, you want his energy to be dog shit in this movie? If some, like, yeah, I understand if his energy was really good in Secret Invasion, I would understand why to keep it. But like, you want him to be the whole hobbling confused man?
That's what I'm saying. So at the end of the day, if you want me to put a ribbon in a bow on my general thoughts, I would just say I had a very enjoyable time with this film. Had a lot of laughs. Had a lot of just honestly, like a lot of smiles. I smiled a lot watching this movie, so it felt good to see it. Leah, what were
Yes.
your general thoughts on this movie?
This is exactly what I want from an MCU movie. Like, tone wise, connectivity wise, I felt great at the beginning, but only because Darben's henchman is played by television actor Daniel Ings, who I like, and I felt very safe in his hands, but that's just me. There were a couple of sort of, I guess because they shot in London, some deep cut British TV actors on this show. Yeah, I'm very happy. We'll get to teases
Oh yeah,
later. That's a different issue.
yeah, for sure. And Jake, what were your general thoughts on this movie?
You know, I try to remember who it was, but someone said that this was going to be a wacky and silly MCU movie, and they got made fun for it. And wait, it was like the director who said that. Right. Yeah, I think that that's the thing about it, is that it actually was like wacky and silly, and I feel like it. The thing, I think, a thing that's we underrate is that with a lot of these MCU properties, these characters really have not spent that much time like just chilling out, hanging out together. Like if you think about like how many scenes there are with like Steve Rogers and Tony Stark not in like a major plot point, there's not a ton. And I just think it's really fun to see superheroes just in a low stakes situation. Like it just like there's just something, and I think that Leah, you're absolutely right. Like this is what I want from most of these movies, in that like not that I don't have like issues with some of the stuff in the movie, but I feel like it understood that we want to watch these movies because we want to watch the journey these characters go on, and the stakes only need to be as important as they are for those characters. And like we didn't need like I noticed a lot that this movie was clearly chopped up a lot. I mean, I don't think the original shooting script was supposed to be an hour 45, but I think it really helps show what's important. That like people are like, oh, this villain's a little bit weak, and the thing is, yes, it's not the most deeply written role, but honestly, I wouldn't want less time with Carol and Kamala and Monica in exchange for the villain. I'd rather the villain be weak and have a good time with the characters. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think the smile thing is really true. Like it was the MCU movie that I think just understood like this is a crowd pleaser.
Yes, absolutely. And Cecelia.
I echo everything everyone else has said. The tone of it is very light. It's approachable. Rosa, who is famously very weird about superhero things, really enjoyed it. I mean, the Flurkins were a great touch. So like tonally, I really enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll be able to get into this a little bit more. It is in some ways, I see it as being a little bit of a political war horse too. Like there's a lot to be said about all female coalition and those kind of like larger political implications, which I was trying to avoid doing that. But the more that I watched it and the more that I've thought about it over the weekend, I was like, this actually has some real meat to work with that I will be thinking about and unpacking, over time. And some of that's also because I've been reading feminist scholarship all weekend, so I was like doing some of that work already.
Who among us?
But there's some really powerful stuff there that I am excited by.
With you saying that, Cecelia, and you said, I don't know how much we're going to get into it. I actually would like for you to get into that a little bit, if you could.
Yeah, so it's really tough with this movie. I was really trying to resist reading it strictly allegorical, like one-to-one, Carol represents this and Monica represents this and da-da-da-da-da. But in many ways, like it really does, from the marketing, from, the movie start to finish, and kind of even the contextual elements, the strike, some of the rumors about certain things, like this does read as a feminist coalition story. And when I'm talking about feminist coalitions, I'm talking about like, those historical moments and within feminism that are like women working across racial lines, gender lines, class lines for a specific purpose. And I think that that's most articulated in in the fact that they become entangled with each other, their powers entangle their bodies in each other, and their first response to being entangled and physically enmeshed in each other's positionalities in time and space, their first response is not to be like, oh, we have to like try to do our best to like stay in our own. Their thing is they come up with a language. We have that whole beautiful montage of them figuring out how to do their powers together, and they come up with a language to be able to address this larger problem together. They're like, they quickly recognize we are in this together, period. Let us figure out how to attack these things together. And I think that is so beautiful. The fact that it's happening at the level of the body and time and place speaks to what a lot of like women of color feminist writers have written about regarding like positionality and standpoint theory, as far as like being able to take one's unique intersection of identity categories and seeing things as they are, and how these women in this film are having to switch those standpoints regularly, I thought was just so beautiful. And there's a lot of like more paranoid readings that you can do of it, but at the outset, I really enjoyed that aspect of the film.
You know, I'm actually glad you said that, because I didn't think of the idea of the switching perhaps leading to different perspectives from each of them seeing. You know, it doesn't start out that way, but as it goes, as the movie kind of builds along, and the point that you mentioned about them training together and that idea, thinking about the movie after the fact, I was like, yo, I really like that a lot, because in a lot of instances in, you know, specifically MCU, we'll see people become heroes and they just hero it out, and they just like, they're there and that's it. Nah, they came up with a plan. They had an idea to, you know, to execute and stuff like that. It didn't work out necessarily at the beginning, but it kind of coalesces at the end, where it's like they're bang, 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 and they're going. So like that thing gets my mind going, and I appreciated that fact too. Leah, what did you think of what Cecelia had to say there?
I hadn't even thought about that, but I'm also not. I haven't been reading everything. At least not this week. Yeah, I was very struck by how do I want to phrase this? How the film dealt with being a role model, and how Monica and Kamala are juxtaposed against each other. Well, in a way, because Kamala has this like very pure hero worship. Monica's been there and grown out of it. And there were just these small moments. The Tana Paris is so good, where you can just see herself in Kamala and just like die like a little bit, and just think like, oh, that's so sad. And then it comes like to this beautiful moment where they talk it out, and even Kamala realizes like, I didn't give you space to be a real person, which is a very deep thing for a teenager to say. But I 100% believe that a Gen Z, Gen Alpha, I'm not sure where the line is, teen would come to that conclusion on her own.
The thing that I really loved about their interactions is that it's weird. I almost, you know, like you're seeing a moment in a movie that like give you like hot heat behind the eyes because you almost want to cry because it comes out of nowhere. I had never seen him. I was so shocked and pleasantly surprised and happy when Carol took the time to say, "I'm sorry the way I spoke to you back there." Like, that is the thing you don't see in these movies. Yeah. Like in action movies, in sci-fi movies, characters yell at each other all the time in the heat of battle, and just like, that's just the cost of doing business. And it's like, no, like they're, and I feel like what this movie did, and I assume it wasn't that it got cut out. I think that they just didn't write it this way, and it was really refreshing, is that like they didn't have any of the bullshit like friction that any team-up movie has, you know? And yeah. I'm not saying that it's always manufactured, but it does feel like a lot of times when you have movies where like people are coming together, it's like, you guys know that there's a goal you both all want to achieve. If you were real people, you'd be able to put your differences aside for a second. And I just like the fact that like, even though like the thing I didn't want to have happen is I didn't want Monica to be so resentful at Carol that she like jeopardizes the mission or whatever. And let's be honest, a lot of movies would have done that, you know, would have been like, they need to squash. Like the thing about it is they end up squashing their problems, but that is actually not what's preventing them from solving the whole like they're able to get past it in some, like they're able to work together even if they don't have the fully actualized, because they respect each other on some level. And so yeah, I just thought that like it was a really it was nice that it didn't, you know, it didn't feel like they needed, like they didn't need, you know, they didn't do the storyline where Kamala meets Carol and Carol's mean to her, and then that's what the whole movie's about. It's like, no, it's because this movie's more positive, and it's a good example. It's not, you know, oh my god, these characters can't get along until the very end, and then they beat the enemy, and then it's over.
And even when they say, like, no, Kamal, we're not a team, it's tuned a little differently. You know, it's...
Oh, it's there, yeah.
Yes. Now, to kind of just to reduce expectations, let's not jump out the window here.
Exactly.
You know, it's funny, like the Carol Danvers thing, I've talked about it across our episodes over the past few months and in leading up to this movie and kind of my anticipation of what we would see from this character. And I have come to the conclusion after watching this movie that I feel like Carol Danvers works better in a team setting as opposed to a solo setting. I think the biggest thing that comes away, especially with the whole vibe, especially at the beginning where you really get this like real loner sense and just this person who doesn't, man, I need my girl to go to therapy. Like she really needs some, like for real. Because it's just like this like when she has that interaction with Monica at the beginning, she just assumes like that everything is good, and I don't think she even sensed the energy that was coming off of Monica off the rip. So when I see that, I'm like, oh man. And just as the movie goes on and she kind of starts to realize, you know, as far as Monica's concerned, and to be fair to Carol, I'll finally be fair because I've been a little hard on her.
You hard to Captain Marvel?
I've been a little hard. I did the whole Mama went to the store and they never come back thing. But in this instance, when you are somebody as omnipotent as she is in terms of her power and everything that she's done, that singular moment where she says like, hey, I destroyed and I blew up all this shit, and this is a lot to deal with. So it's difficult for a person who has all that power and who honestly like got it by accident and then has to deal with these things where she's going back to try and find memories and stuff like that because it's the only thing that she could hold on to. And I think that's what gets lost in some of the conversation about the character. And I'm glad that this movie provided some of that. Even the scene where she visits Monica's mom as she's you know, getting close to succumbing from cancer. And to get that context, I think was important. But yes, the main point that I did want to hit on that was, yes, I feel like Carol in the future does excel around whether it's these two, Kamala and Monica, or in just any Avengers setting. I feel like she would do much better in those instances. And this is kind of like where my larger point on the Marvels, and I know like you could get into the box office stuff or whatever, but if they were able to make this a franchise, like I feel like it would have legs if we weren't caught in the muck of all of the bullshit that came out from the media over the last couple of weeks with no context to anything. But I really do feel like it would have legs. Leah, you wanted to say something?
And and the fact that there was the SAG strike was going on until the day the movie opened, so there was nothing to counter it. Like,
yes.
Yeah. And the thing too is
can't
like,
really, it sucks that you can't really assess fairly.
No, you can't.
Because it's not a normal situation.
And like anyone who had seen Brie Larson and stuff before, no one would ever say that the best place for her is to be like a stoic, unknowable person. Like she is like so knowable. Like that is, I think, her superpower. I mean, a friend of the show, Michael Springthorpe, who I already mentioned, tweeted that like this movie understands that her star power is that she's incredibly beautiful and charismatic, but for some reason she actually has a passion for selling Nissans. Like it's that she is kind of like, the thing I love about her, if you look at her social media, she is actually like just seems like a dork, like a norm, but like not like a nerd, but like she likes to do videos of her making stuff in the air fryer. You know what I mean? And I feel like that energy is something that this movie kind of gets across with her, like not knowing how to host people, just having Goose running around. I think it's like such an interesting detail that she, until like other people are around, she walks around her ship half wearing her suit all the time. Like that's not normal behavior, you know?
Much.
And so, like, I think that there is a weird energy that is funny if it's juxtaposed with other people, but when she's alone, it's like it feels like such a waste of her talent. Like,
Yeah.
there are actresses who are good at being stoic, and she's not one of them. I mean, at least she's not. That's not what she's best at.
Yeah, I think the material that she's been given, I think in the first Captain Marvel movie, and just I mean, I would say even generally till this one, kind of doesn't give her a chance to really be, be the character. Cuz I mean, Carol from the books, I know there's a lot more snark, there's a lot more personality, and there isn't just the I'm strong woman and that's it. Like there's more to this character. So it's nice to kind of see, and this is the greatest thing about having Iman there, kind of bring that out of Captain Marvel in this movie, which I thought was cool. And that's like really is the testament to what Iman Vellani is as an actor to this point in her very, very like early days doing this. And let me just transition to her, because it was my number one takeaway from the movie, was that this person is who they should be building their franchises around. Because the one thing, and we talked about this the other day with Loki, when the person is into it themselves to that degree and is great at it, then that's all you need. That really is all you need, especially when this person is as charismatic as she is, just throughout. Like, and you feel that vibe, you feel the energy, that like how she bounces off of folks and is just able to do different things. Like, I think the emoting, even though I wish we would have gotten a little bit more with the Kree Skrull thing, because I feel like they've kind of used that conflict, which is a big comic book story, and kind of use it as a footnote to some of these movies. If they had dove into that a little bit deeper, I think you could have gotten more out of it. But as far as like, when you see Kamala try and save everybody over there, and Carol's like, nah, that's not how it works. And then she's just like crestfallen. She can't believe it. So like, you have all of these different emotions that she's playing, like, her excitement, and then, fangirling over Carol, which there was this one dude online who was like, well, I don't know why that she's fangirling so much. You saw that was a problem. I felt like that was a big problem. And it's like, yo, I mean, we had Spider-Man basically turn into Iron Man Jr. over the first couple movies, and everybody was cool with it. Being fans is like, that's all of us in a way. Like, we've all exhibited those emotions and those feelings. So to get crazy over that is kind of wild. I mean, that's who Miss Marvel is. That's the other part about it.
It also was. It worked. It was funny. Like, I think that no matter what, like I'm almost never. Like, is there a version of this movie where her fangirling gets annoying? Yes, but it's with a less talented actress and less good writing.
Bingo.
And so, like, yeah, it was funny each time. And I think that, like, what I said right coming out of the movie is the idea that Iman Vellani was planning on going to college to study, like, graphic design is a bit like if Victor Wembanyama was gonna be, like, a construction worker. He's a really tall basketball player, guys. Like, it's just like, what do you mean? Like, she wasn't gonna do this for a living? I just don't understand. Her face she was born to be in close-up. I don't get it.
And I will also say one thing that I really like about her is that, like, sometimes the fact that she is still, like, inexperienced in this world and acting in front of a camera really works with the character, because she has this excess of emotions, and like it bleeds into, like, when the camera is kind of like shifting focus from her to someone else, she's still sitting there emoting and doing this thing. Like, she's so present, and she just lets her emotions go. And that's such a teenager thing, but it's such a teenager fangirl thing, where it's just like, I am not done feeling this feeling, and I'm going to keep feeling it whether you are here to witness it or not. So you can go pan over to Monica, who's doing some serious shit, but I'm just going to still, like, keep processing. And it works really well with those moments. I really enjoyed those little moments where I was like, you're not in this scene anymore, but you still are. You've left a little ghost of yourself, and that's so nice.
Yes. And Leah, what did you think of Iman in this movie?
Okay, well, let me preface this by saying I do think that Marvel has introduced a few too many kids with Gee Whiz energy, but if
Sure.
anyone's gonna have it, it's Kamala Khan. Like, I didn't love it with America Chavez because that's not the America Chavez I know. I think they went a little bit overboard with Kate Bishop as well, and we will get to her.
Mm-hmm.
But that is who Kamala is 100%, and Iman is just perfect.
Yes. Yeah. And I think to Jake's point, if it's somebody else, then perhaps maybe it gets annoying. And we've seen kids be annoying in movies all the time with all the pluckiness and stuff like that. But I mean, it's just very difficult. Like right at the beginning of the movie where she switches back and then her parents are telling her that Captain Marvel was in the house. Just the look on her face was just like priceless.
Oh,
Right
tiny Billy and Tommy too. They're also on my shit list with their ice cream song. Get out of here, grow up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Iman was great. And another traditional category that we normally do on this show for movies is what was our favorite scene? What was the best scene in this movie to each and everyone? Jake, I'll start with you.
I'll say, that's tough because I think like obviously the moments where they're all together are great. I'll go with honestly the montage where they're doing all the powers is just great. It's something we don't often see in these movies where it's like a fully like silly montage. I'm glad that I remember when the first trailer came out and it had Intergalactic on it. I said they better not just be blowing this for the trailer. This better be in the movie because like it's such an obvious song to have in there. And that was just a lot of fun. And I can imagine myself, watching that on YouTube at 11 at night in a couple months.
Nice. And Leah, how about you?
Well, that's what I was the double dutch is what I was going to say, that part of it. So I'll stay true to my musical theater roots and say
it.
The Musical Planet.
Yes.
I wish we'd been there longer. I wish they had sung at Zawe. Yeah. I wish she had tried to communicate, but I'll take what I had. I'll take what I got.
Nice. And Cecelia?
I was also going to say the montage. It was the one that I was sitting with thinking about the most this weekend, but to toss another one in there. I mean, I know that this is, I can't remember who said it in Discord. There's some high-key ridiculous moments, but
that work.
Yeah. Cat herding was so great. And specifically the like little shot of Brie Larson or Captain Marvel kind of like sticking her arms out all dorkily and like chasing after the cats. Like that little moment right after she had just done some like big cosmic superpower thing. I was like, this is so sweet. And my kids were like freaking out next to me. So it made me enjoy it all.
I'll say this. The moment that I realized what song was in the background, I almost leapt out of my seat. I was just like, and the thing too is like, that's a joke that I guarantee you like half the people who see the movie probably forget that song's in Cats, but just like Chef's Kiss. And then I saw people criticizing this moment, like, oh, that's too silly. They're going to make people eat cats. It's like, bro, once you introduce cats that can have tentacles and can like eat all the matter they want, that's already silly. What are you doing trying to litigate how serious you're going to be with cats that have tentacles coming out of their mouths?
No, man. For me, it's hard not to go with the montage scene because I do feel like from to what I mentioned earlier about seeing heroes practice being heroes as opposed to just heroing. That was cool, and just kind of like seeing when the movie really to me kind of just starts to flow. And it flows from then till the end, to me, is when they get together as a group.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the peak of that for me, where, they're going back and forth and they're having fun doing it and they're getting used to each other. They're getting friendly with each other. And that, that was awesome to see. A hat tip to the scene because I thought it was funny when Kamala's parents were trying to talk to her. You know, she's going on this mission and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot, and Monica's trying to reassure them. And Kamala's mom goes, you know, speaks in her native tongue, like I'll kill her. And I was just like, yo, immigrant families, yo, salute to immigrant families. That's the energy. That's the energy that they be on. So
Mm-hmm.
so that was a lot of fun. That was a fun scene too. And I'm trying to think of like like an action one, because the action. Oh, shout out to the VFX. That was pretty good, and that was pretty good in this.
For the most
Not
part, yeah.
anything. Yeah, I would say like not anything like too crazy stood out to me, because I know lately on the Marvel tip, when it comes to VFX, people be talking a lot like you know, things are out of whack. But I actually thought that they did a pretty good job on this.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I think the big thing that they did right, like, I think what this kind of shows, because there were moments obviously where, like, when they have, you know, big action pieces where people are flying around and the character, you know, is CGI, like, it doesn't always look perfect. But I think that what this showed is that if you get the backgrounds right, everything's forgiven. Like, I think I think what I come back to is almost all the Marvel shots that people complain about the CGI for, it's because the background looked bad. And, like, as long as they clearly took the time to make all the space scenes look right, a lot of these look like they're on really big sets. And so I think that we're just way more forgiving if the only thing that's fake, that looks fake, is the character, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Biggest critique of the movie, if there's any. I kind of got into it earlier with the editing. I feel like that's my bit. Yeah, that's probably my biggest thing. But Cecelia, what would you say is your biggest critique of the movie?
I do think the biggest critique is the villain. The villain, I could not. I mean, we knew her motivations. We knew kind of, you know, her history with Carol, but and I couldn't exactly locate exactly why I didn't really care for it. But every time one of her scenes came up, I was like, all right, well, I kind of just want to get back to
Very
the
phase
girls
one-ish.
now.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a good comparison. It actually reminded me of like Thor villains, like Thor 1 and 2 villains, where you're just like,
had a little Malekith. Yeah, I could see
Except this time they made the correct decision to have her speak English.
Yeah.
Leah, how about you?
This might open a can of worms, but my biggest critique is I think there was too much recapping Miss Marvel and WandaVision and Captain Marvel.
That's fair. I agree.
In terms of just like actual flashbacks.
Yes, I agree.
As much as I love a show don't tell, I didn't need to be watching because I already watched them, and I understand that there was a perception that this movie was too much homework. I disagree, but
I also think that they didn't. The things that they did show, it wasn't super helpful. So like I said, my brother-in-law, who was with me, hadn't seen any of it. And he was like, I don't understand why when Miss Marvel got both bangles at the end, she didn't explode like that other lady did. Like, I'm not. And I was like, well, that has to do with her power set, I think. And like, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, nothing about her powers was explained. And I really needed that because it seems like there was something really critical there, especially with the whole bangle element. And I was like, he was very confused. And so it was one of those things where it seems like they were trying to capture, at least especially for Miss Marvel, like the tone that they were that she was bringing in, but they didn't really explain some of those like intricacies of her powers, because it is actually kind of a complicated like power set that she has. That it's like she's a mutant, it's activated by this thing, and like it is a little weird. So yeah,
interesting. Yeah, Leah, I actually like that you mentioned that because I was like, and I know like we MCU heads, so we you know we kind of get the drift of everything. So to a degree, that's always going to kind of feel like I don't really need this. Just get me to the business. Let's get cracking over here. But I feel what you're saying on that front. Jake, what about you?
So this was actually brought up in the Discord earlier today, and you can join.
Niku,
for $3. And Niku in the Discord brought us up, and this is a thing that really didn't trouble me because I'm not someone who like a plot hole or whatever actually troubles me. But the bit where Carol is told at the end that she can use her power to reignite Hollow's sun, I'm fine with that being the way it's resolved, but it needs to be more complicated. There needs to be a reason why she just didn't do that already. Like the reason she didn't do that already can't just be she didn't think to do it. Like I was kind of like, why did she wait this long? Like, because I can't simultaneously believe that she feels a lot of regret over what she did to the Kree, and that she never once realized, oh wait, I have energy powers. I maybe could try to reignite the sun, especially because of how quickly it happens. If it was a complicated process, so it was like, I need XYZ thing in order to
Yeah.
reignite the sun. But the fact that there was nothing, it was just her powers literally can on their own reignite the sun. I'm like, well, that undercuts the whole thing of her talking about how much regret she had, because she could have reignited the sun this whole time.
Yeah, I think that's when he posted that earlier, I thought about it, and it was kind of like one of those things where we needed this device to kind of further something along, which I understand it happens sometimes. This is where, if you really wanted to think about it heavy, which I don't think this movie is trying to do, is have you think about stuff heavy. They're trying to just get you. It's really, this movie's trying to entertain you, more so than anything else, and that's why, like, you have a thought about it, but then at the same time, I don't know. Like, I had a lot of fun watching
For sure.
the power sets, and even that end scene there where Ben just explodes, and it's just like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then it was
Well-
going back and forth. Yeah, go ahead, Cecelia.
And well, what I'll say is, like, yeah,
Mhm.
it did kind of read as like she just didn't think of it. Is that the only reason? But the part of Carol's journey in this film too seems to be that because she hasn't had people with her for so long, is that she's also kind of like out of touch with herself and what she can do. And there's just kind of she has an insecurity. It seems like she's still insecure about what she can do. She's brought in kind of this, like, aura in the movies leading up to this, like, I can do anything. But in this one, that gets shakier because it seems like it's like the first time that she's talked to other people. And I would say, like, as a woman, when you're around other women, like, there is those emotional barriers just kind of like come down a little easier. And so she's actually able to be like, I messed up, and that's why they call me the Annihilator, and I don't know what to do with this, and I don't know what my power, like, it seems like she still hasn't figured out her powers logics quite fully. So I was able to kind of make sense of it in that regard, but as, like, part of the story, it is kind of like it's been years.
Literally, the thing is, I just need it to be not need, because once again, I don't need this movie to do anything, but I just would like it to have been a little harder, or to have another, because with the speed with which it happens, it's hard for me to believe that she didn't realize she could do it, because she does it so quick. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the fact that it's kind of just like an afterthought scene, even if it's something like, I didn't, think that they would want me to try, or like, I don't know. But that was the thing I bumped on, and I only bring it up because I had the thought, and then when someone else put it in the Discord, I'm like, okay, I'm not the only person who's having that thought. But beyond that, I don't have any major complaints, except for the fact that they clearly cut a lot of stuff out from the Singing Planet, and I'm mad that they did that. I'm mad that they did that.
I think it was one of those instances where they were like, do we really feel like this is a bit that will go too long and will annoy folks? And my counter to that would be, if you want to be the goofy, wacky movie that Nia DaCosta says the movie can be, just lean into it a little bit further.
My suspicion, which is not too cynical, but cynical, is that I suspect that they got really scared by the boys aren't going to like this movie, and so they cut out musical stuff because musical is feminine coded.
That's nasty work,
it's like when there'll be a trailer for a musical that goes online and there's no singing in it. Leah's for the audio listeners, Leah is enthusiastically shaking her head. But no, I think that I will say, perhaps the line that I've been thinking about the most since I left the theater, just because I think Brie Larson's delivery of it is incredible, is when she says, "Oh no, he's bilingual." Like, I think that's just like a perfect joke.
It's the dumbest joke, and it's so funny.
Like, he can't understand you if you don't sing. He's bilingual.
Oh man, are there any other particular scenes or bits?
Well, I think we got to talk some more about Monica and Tiana Paris.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, I was gonna see, the problem is, like, the real big thing that I wanted to say about her, besides, first of all, let me be just very respectful. I think she fills out that outfit very well. But besides that, I thought the emotional range that she was able to show, not just throughout the movie in her dealings with Carol And with Kamala, to a degree, I thought her reaction to the memory thing was interesting. That was jarring for her to obviously see her mother again in that light, see her sick, and obviously see her talk to Carol in that way. I think that was a nice touch. And I we'll get to the post credit scene later, but I thought the acting that she did in that brief moment when she sees her a version of her mom again, yo, that was like, yo, she really turned it up. I was I was very moved by what she was able to do in this movie. But Jake, since you brought it up, talk about it a little bit, sir.
I thought that a thing that she did really well in the scenes, especially in the one scene with Carol, like in the bottom of the ship where she uses her powers to, fix whatever, which I think is a really nice scene. Because I like the way that her powers are kind of allegorical for being grown up. That, like, obviously she's grown up, but, like, the thing that's more surprising to Carol is that she has powers. But I love the way that she kind of played... She played an adult trying to express feelings that are still the same as when she had a kid, like when she was a kid. Like, the pain she's feeling is not rational like an adult will feel it, but she's trying to articulate it in that way. And I think that, like, it wasn't, once again, in the same way that I like how there's no massive that these characters are gentle to each other generally. I like that she is enough of an adult to realize that she can simultaneously say, it really hurt that you didn't come back. I could have used you. But she's also not, like, snot crying like she's 12, She doesn't need to return to that. She's not in Arrested Development because of this pain, but she's still able to feel it. And I feel like that's, like, once again, I think that that's a complex, realistic emotion that in between all the goofiness and silliness, I think that all that stuff is grounded because, she feels like, I think that she's really even if she doesn't have the biggest laugh lines at the three, I think she's really integral to a lot of the humor and the chemistry working.
And also, she's incredibly intelligent.
Yes. But I think she's integral to working because I think you need a really grounded person. Like, she's both a straight man. She has her own jokes too, but, like, she is able to kind of bridge that. She's both very intelligent, but also very emotionally intelligent. And I thought I really liked the performance a lot, and I don't want it to go undersung because I think obviously, like, Amon, in my opinion, is the MVP. Yeah. But every MVP has a great supporting cast around it.
Yes, Black Girl Magic, Black is Beautiful. That's all.
Oh my god! By the way, I saw someone on Facebook because I checked Facebook to see something about, like, a birthday. I saw, like, a viral post that was like, a real line from this movie is she doesn't know how to fly, and Nick Fury says use Black Girl Magic, and I'm like, you have never hung out with a single person who isn't white in your whole life, have you? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Oh man, throwing it to Leah. What you think of Monica in this movie?
I mean, incredible. And I've been, Monica Rambeau is one of my friends' favorite heroes, like, period. So I have been hearing about when are we gonna get Monica Rambeau in the MCU for over a decade, and I'm so thrilled. I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy for me. I already talked about her, like, watching her childhood die reflected, like, off of, I phrased that poorly, mourning her childhood in watching Kamala. What else? Yeah, the post-credit, incredible. I like that she wore shorts on the plane. That's something you're only going to get with female directors. What else? Yeah, she's so funny. She has a very distinct sense of humor when they're on the singing planet and she's just like, where's the prince? Where's the prince? Hey, it's so good.
And I love the moments where she allows herself to slip back into seeing Carol as Auntie Carol. Yeah. And, like, then she kind of quickly corrects herself. Like, no, I can't feel that way. I love that.
Yeah, like, we all regress a little bit around, like, family members.
Yes.
Very accurate.
Yeah. That was cool. Cecelia?
Yeah, I mean... So Monica was actually Rosa's favorite character, which took me surprised because you're right. She's not the most, like, of the three, the most, like, charismatic on the screen or has the most laugh lines. But there is something about her character that feels, it has a groundedness and it feels soft somehow. And I really was happy to see her go through kind of an emotional journey quite a bit in this film. And I know that when we did the previews pod, I was like, I think I would be okay if she stayed a little mad for a little longer. And what I thought this one did a really good job with was not making the beef between the two of them be the central, like, the animating plot. It was there, but it was a side thing that we kind of were like, okay, we're just going to trust that it's going to take care of itself on its own time. And I think with Jake talking about how there's those moments where she like slips and starts to see her as Auntie Carol again, and then has to like bring herself back, does make her, it makes her feel more approachable, but it also just makes that tension, it brings the fact that those tensions, those inner conflicts, like are messier than just "you left us, how dare you." Like there's still a tenderness there that she can't quite reconcile with her frustration and feeling abandoned by Carol, and then that ends up getting resolved over the course of the film. Yeah, she was great. I loved Monica.
No, I think the thing that Jake said about emotional intelligence is like a really important thing when you factor in that stuff, because I mean it's like you equate it to real life. We've all been in fights with people. We've all fights with people we love in terms of just like arguments or whatever it is. How do you come back from that? What is the route that you go through to get to a place? Are you the first one to make the move? Sometimes people are like, I don't want to be the first one to make a move, even if I feel like I'm justified in being mad. But in this case, Monica feels like she's justified in being mad. But even then, as Carol's having trouble fixing the issues with the ship, she goes to her. It's a very soft, and it's a very like small moment, but it's the small moments that you appreciate when somebody makes the first move, even with the fact, because it shows that this person is not only thinking of themselves in that moment, they're also thinking like not only of the larger mission, but I care about this person. I want to see this person be okay regardless. And the reason why I'm upset at this person is because I love this person so much. And that's the point.
And I think that those tender moments that you pointed out, like you pointed that one out, Jake pointed out Carol apologizing to Kamala, like all of those little moments give the movie an emotional cohesion. And I think that's why tonally everyone's kind of like, I know how I felt in this movie and after. The emotional cohesion of it really works. And, where we have in all the other Avengers movies, like someone has a beef and it lasts for many movies, like
movies on it.
Yeah, movies on it.
Would rather be a criminal in Europe than go to therapy / talk to Tony Stark.
Right, exactly. Like Captain America, for as great as he is, still never really apologized for like busting a whole country. Like, so that those tender moments are really important. And I guess goes into, I don't like to call like certain types of emotions feminine, but it does create it is kind of part of like the feminine feeling or aesthetic of the movie that makes it work and feel very true to life. So
now, I have a question for Cecelia, because you've mentioned before, because not everyone listens to every episode. Can you restate what Rosa's general objection to superhero movies is? Because I have a question about her. No, I have a question about how she felt about this.
So Rosa's objection to superhero movies. Rosa's my 8-year-old daughter, and she's a very, very girly girl. But she feels like they're too boyish. And I'm like, what about and I've talked to her many times. I'm like, what about the ones where there are girls, like Captain Marvel? And she's like, I still don't like it. And I think that there's something about violence that is just kind of like automatically coded as for boys, which is on one hand really sad that an 8-year-old already feels like violence equals boys equal violence. Like that's something that I would like to try to deconstruct. And I feel like I can do that in my own home, but with all the like, she still lives in society and interacts with like kids at school and watches these movies. Like there's only so much that I can do. And so this movie, she really enjoyed it because like violence was not the animating thrust to it. The conflict, and I guess that's like part of the critique, is that the villain and the conflict was not really robust. But when you're trying to, it does make femininity just kind of not work with a violence or violence as an organizing like feature of something. And so I think that's why she liked it. Yeah, it was a softer movie. But yeah, that's Rosa's.
I mean, you answered the follow-up question I was going to ask. So instead, I'll ask a joke follow-up question of, since her favorite was Monica Rambeau, how do you feel about raising a woman in STEM? No.
I feel like once she gets into middle school, I'm not going to be able to help her with any of her homework.
No, but yeah, I think that is. I also think that, well, I think there are fair critiques of the villain not being fleshed out, etc., etc. I also think that a lot of I think that people will critique these types of movies with as if there's like a template for the amount of everything we need to have. And like, I actually think it's somewhat okay if a villain is not as crucial. Like, because I think that we expect that like every superhero movie does not need a super compelling villain if the other stuff is good. Like if there's nothing in its place, then fine. But I feel like this is not the story that Nia DaCosta was trying to tell is not one about, you know, it's a story about people coming together. It's not really a story about this specific person. And yeah, could the movie have been better if the villain was more linked to the struggles that the heroes are going through emotionally? Absolutely. But like, not everything can be a masterpiece.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, am I gonna add more Darben and take away from Nick Fury and the cons? I don't know. Like, I feel like that's not something I want to do. That's just kind of where I am. Like, where you get those nice little funny moments with them, with the cons on the ship, the pops, with hashtag watch agenda, being a little worried about.
Oh yeah, can we do a watch agenda corner quickly? There's the
Yeah, what's up?
His thing with the index bonds, right? And then I know that when we were in the even before we left the theater, I know he put in the Discord, Mike is bringing up said to you that your favorite scene was when Nick Fury was coming off the ship.
Yo! Oh my!
Just talk about it.
So this man
surrounded by cats too. I feel like that's an important
also salute to Flurkin. Shouts to Flurkin. Always shout out to Flurkin. A Goose is a legend out here in these streets. But yes, they land. Obviously the ship has a little bit of a rough landing, and the way that Fury like comes out holding his back like the oh my god, I was dying. I was dying in that theater, man. It was so good, so good. Like, and it's funny. Like in Secret Invasion, like some of the best moments were Fury being washed, but just the palette, the tone of this version of Washed was just a lot more happier.
Yeah, it was humorous.
It was humorous. It was just so good. Oh my gosh, the way he's holding his back. And I've been there. I get it.
And once again, for the audience, I'd like to state for the record that there is, I think, a 37 age year difference between Samuel Jackson and Anthony.
What's 37 years? It's not that long. It's not that long. I'll be there soon enough. But yes, Fury in this movie was a pleasant surprise. It was a nice little uplift, nice little shot in the arm for Nick.
And he has such good chemistry with Brie Larson, really.
Oh my god!
I mean, famously, they're really good
friends. They're besties,
yes, which makes me so happy, and is why I know all the incels on the internet are wrong about her because I trust Samuel Jackson, judge of character, way more than them.
Oh my god!
Also, yeah. I don't know if you guys saw, but she was on the Tonight Show and she told an anecdote of she wanted like another take for a scene, and she's like, "Is that okay?" And he said, "I'll do anything for my second favorite scene partner." And she said, "Who's number one?" And he said, "Me." Which is the perfect Samuel Jackson story. But yeah, I think he's so fun when he's allowed to be fun, when he's allowed to be off ball. Like he's not a very good on ball guy in as Nick Fury, I don't think.
Yes,
but like some of his deliveries, I mean, the bit where he's like, "Are you praying? Don't stop. We need all the help we can get." Like little lines like that are great.
Yeah, and it was nice. You'd see the chemistry between them in the first movie, but of course he was under a CGI mask, so
yeah,
they could really like play off of that really well.
Their exchange about like don't touch shiny things, like that felt like that is really like
that's Monica though.
Yeah,
she also has that problem.
True, but I guess there's certain scenes where you're just like this scene is actually stupid on paper. Of like Catherine Marvel saying sorry, I want to touch shiny things, but when you have actors that have energy, it's like that's all you need. Writing and directing are worthless if you don't have actors with good energy between them.
Yes, and obviously, this movie has a lot happen in it, and as we get towards the end, and Darben is dispatched, Monica has to, close up a rift in a dimension, and unfortunately, she gets caught on the other side. So the movie concludes with Carol coming back to Louisiana, and the cons moving in for a little bit. Kamala and Carol have a nice scene talking about their present and their future. That was cool. And then we get Kamala Khan in her star moment, pulling a Nick Fury in 2008 as one Kate Bishop walks through her door in New York City, and she sees Kamala Khan just basically reenact the post-credit scene to Iron Man. This was absolutely wonderful. We have our Young Avengers tie-in, or honestly, like there was a part of me that was thinking like, how about A Force instead? That's just put all the women together. Like that's that. It crossed my mind for a brief bit, even though I know Young Avengers is where they were going. But I want everybody to kind of give their thoughts on this moment. It's great to see Kate Bishop again. Leah, what did you think of this scene?
I mean, it's a put up or shut up moment for me. If we're gonna do Young Avengers, you gotta do it. Stop teasing me. They've been teasing me for the last 3 years. That's one of my favorite teams. Kamala's not on it canonically, but I'll allow it. She can be there. She can be their
Yes.
leader. I have all kinds of theories as to who they should get next. And I'm
Wait a
excited
minute!
about that.
If you have theories, I want to hear.
Whoa! We have a lot of content we need to fill up over the next few months. AC, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Go.
So here's what I think
Okay.
they should do. Well, this is a theory within a theory. So due to how Loki ended, I know we are now like seeing maybe a way out of Kang Dynasty.
Maybe.
Maybe. I think maybe the best thing they could do to put a coda on that, if they need to, is to introduce Iron Lad, who is a Kang variant, who is younger, so it would be played by a different actor. And he is a member of the Young Avengers. And he's also Cassie Lang's boyfriend, which is complicated considering Cassie Lang's role in Quantumania. So that would be an interesting thing to do.
Ooh,
You sold me once you said there was a complicated romance involved. I'm a simple man.
Right? Will they ever do a complicated romance in Marvel again? Who knows? Who can say?
Again, was there one in the first place?
I don't know. Do you want to count like Steve Peggy? That's complicated.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated insofar as time, but like in actuality,
Yeah.
it's the most like chaste 1930s romance ever.
Boo.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, because who else have they? Yeah, because I think
Like there's Ironhearts out there.
Ironheart, Kid
she
Loki.
could do that. Kid
Billy and
Loki would be
Tommy.
fine. Billy and Tommy,
Whoever,
grow up.
She-Hulk guy.
Yeah, not my small Hulk, but you know, I'll allow it. I would prefer Teddy. They've got America.
I mean, yeah, America, Billy and Tommy.
Yeah,
Billy and
we got Stature.
Yep.
You know.
And she's the only other one who's mentioned in the scene.
Yes. Yeah. Did you know Ant-Man had a daughter?
Oh, and then we saw Eli Bradley.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, that's the other one.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether or not he's gonna be. He should be in Cap 4.
Yeah, we'll
I don't know
see.
why
Yeah,
not.
we'll see, because I know Isaiah's in it.
Yeah.
So well, yeah, I'm intrigued. Yeah, Young Avengers, as I was reading some of it over the last year and change, with some of the Kang stuff, the Iron Lad stuff, that is very much my vibe, and it would very much fit in.
Yeah.
If they, translating however they decide what they decide to do with Kang, you can definitely do like an offshoot thing of it. But I will just say, like, just seeing Kate and Kamala together. I mean, Jake and I talked about this like about I think a month and a half ago or whatever it was. But I would say put those two together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you
And,
got it right
and
there.
instantly Kate Bishop becomes less G-Wiz than she was around Hawkeye, around Clint. Well, she's also Hawkeye. I was like,
And I think, I mean, this is the obvious thing to say, but we have to get Peter Parker in there, like, yesterday. Like,
Kamala Khan, did you see her dislike? She dislikes spiders.
Yeah, I did see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did
so
see that.
He's got to be there. And what's so funny is, like, he has been the kind of, like, G-Wiz kid for so long, but, like, at this point, he would kind of be of the Young Avengers, like the most veteran, has the most history with like big battles and stuff. And so I think it could be really funny to have him be in there like, oh yeah, I'm the big hotshot. I know how all this shit goes down. Like, I would be really interested to see that and have the rest of the audience be like, you're not fooling anybody. But him and Kamala, I need that to be.
No, I mean, I'm very much intrigued and excited. And it is like, to Leah's point, it's exciting to finally get a little bit a morsel of something
substantial. They are very gay in the comics, though, so Marvel needs to get its mind right with that if they're gonna actually do this team.
Oh yeah. All right, definitely interested in seeing that. So yeah, we have that, and that ends the film. But there is another scene. There is a post-credit scene where we find Monica on another Earth. She wakes up. She sees one Hank McCoy, CGI Kelsey Grammer. Beast is in the house. Jake, what did you think?
I mean, I knew it was coming because you mentioned it previously on the spoilers chat in the Discord, but it's just seeing it. It's like, it's crazy that it's real. I think that I think a thing I've joked about forever is that they should bring back Kelsey Grammer's Beast, because I think that's just such a funny thing that happened, and evidently the people at Marvel Studios agree with me. And I just think that, like, I don't know, I was really excited to see him, and I'm glad that they're finally, like, because I think forever people were like, when are they going to introduce the X-Men? When are they going to introduce the X-Men? And like, I think that lumping it in with the multiverse storyline is probably a good way to go, because you got to do it you got to make it make sense somehow. And so I like that we're just getting teases of it while other stuff is going on. And yeah, I think, and I'll let everyone else talk about it, but I think the more important and most impactful part of the scene had nothing to do with Hank McCoy.
Yes, I agree with that, as we also see a version of Monica's mom in the binary suit from the Uncanny X-Men. That was pretty cool. Leah, give me your thoughts. What you got?
Okay. I did not know that much about binary. That makes more sense. I was like, but why that there? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Is it I've been tricked before with Multiverse of Madness. Is this like going to be the X-Men universe that we see, or I don't know.
Well, I mean, the way that I look at it is this: if the build is the Secret Wars, and we're gonna do the Incursions version of it, we're gonna get different versions of X-Men.
Because Loki has to stretch.
Yeah, that's right.
He's got to
Loki
stand
at
up
some
and
point.
stretch, and then it's going to ruin everything. Funny if that's literally what it was.
A fly lands on his nose and he tries to swat it away, and then
a squirrel.
Oh my gosh! How does that man eat? Like, what's going to happen in there?
Anymore?
He's a god. He doesn't.
He's in a tree. It's
the man is a tree. Like, he's not in it. He is a tree.
Oh my goodness! But yeah, I think with the Incursions, what we have here is just the continuing build to Secret Wars, and what I do think is the eventual Beyonder Battle World storyline, where we'll see different versions of X-Men. We're bringing every Sony, Fox person that you could think of into that mix, and now seeing more of these characters. Honestly, like, I think the thing that I do hope with Monica here is I kind of want them to go back to what, like, this place that she's in now, and to get some scenes with her and in this version of Maria, and kind of have a little back and forth, and we'll see where that goes, see how that builds. Just more than anything, obviously you see anything involving the X-Men, it's a cool thing. And Beast even mentions Charles. This version's Charles is alive, so that makes you think a little bit about what this version is. So obviously it's not the version that Multiverse of Madness is, so we're stretching out the multiverse a bit at a time, because remember, Charles died in Multiverse of Madness.
It means it's also not Deadpool, because that has Nicholas Hoult.
Exactly.
And it's also not post Logan, because Charles Xavier dies in that universe.
Exactly.
So
So we are stretching the multiverse out a little bit. And I think that's like why, that's where if you want to buy in, like, not just the diehards, but like folks who've been seeing these movies for a while, and you pop the crowd with a beast and stuff like that. Because I think folks are just intrigued anytime you mention the X-Men. And I do think, like Jake said, to just sprinkle them in here and there till you get to a point where you can build out your own X-Men, which I'm thinking that Kevin Feige is thinking of, is you give nice nods to the past and show a little love to nostalgia, and then eventually give a new team their new thing, which is what I would see as the long-term plan. So I think that was a very exciting scene. That was a very exciting setup. Cecelia, you got anything on that scene that you wanted to add?
Well, I was very excited to see it. Heartbroken that it wasn't Nicholas Hoult, so hopefully they can rope him back in at some point. I would love to see a version like, the Peter the Great version of the Beast, played by Nicholas Hoult would be super fun. Just go really unhinged, die in a lake or something. But I need more information if you have it on Binary, because they made such a big deal, like the camera kind of over dramatically like zooms out, and it's like you see her whole body in her suit, and I'm like, this means nothing to me. What's happening? So
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a Carol Danvers. I mean, it's Carol Danvers. It like is a version of her in the book. So like
mhm,
them obviously using Maria for this is interesting. Maria is a Captain Marvel version in the Multiverse of Madness movie. So
mhm,
I'm interested that they're using Lashana Lynch so much as these different versions. It's
mhm.
mhm.
exciting that they're bringing her back in the fold. But I mean, anybody who has the Captain Marvel powers is a very serious deal.
Mhm.
So you hope to see that this is a strong person that will be able to battle in Secret Wars at some point, and that's really like the best way to describe it. She is like Carol Danvers has gone through so many like iterations of who her character is in the books in terms of not only outfits but power sets to
Yeah.
to a degree as well.
So why is she with I don't know. I couldn't. I was like, why are you with the X-Men? Are you a mutant here? Like, is that what we're doing? Like, I realized that it's a post-credit scene, so they really want you to like
Hmm.
walk away with more questions than answers. But I was just kind of like, what is this?
Well, I mean, like Captain Marvel had a tangle up in the books, like a very actually serious storyline where Rogue steals her memories, and this is kind
Oh.
of where they play into the memory stuff with Carol in these movies, but not obviously the same way. But that's where that kind of memory thing kind of shows up in the books with Rogue. So I think that if we get whatever, however we decide, however they decide to do this, with Binary, I think sometimes they show it as a prop. Sometimes it's just that, just like be like, oh wow, this person is really like involved with the X-Men and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
I think this is one of the instances where I would like to see them dive into that a little bit further at some point. But
Mhm.
obviously,
Mhm.
all this depends on what makes money and executives and everybody talking about what's the best way to go with Marvel these days, as seems to be the big conversation around everywhere, as journalists, places like Variety continue to just like hammer away and hammer away like somebody took their access away or something along those lines. At least what it feels like to me. But yeah, like we'll have to see what happens. But I do feel like this was, I know, like that was a big pop for the crowd in the theater that I was in, that end
Mhm.
credit scene, and I would like to see them build on it. So it'll certainly be fascinating to see for sure.
Yeah.
it does seem
But
like they're
yes.
scattering heroes, and maybe that's the connective thread in this phase that we're missing. Like Doctor Strange is somewhere else.
Went to another dimension.
Yep.
Mhm.
Now Monica's somewhere else.
Hmm. Yes,
Interesting.
I think that there's gonna be some movie
Yeah.
that is gonna have someone gather everyone up. I
Uh,
think.
uh,
Oh, possibly.
Oh,
Yeah. I don't know why being teased. I think that's kind of like, at least that's what Deadpool 3 seems like it's gonna be. Yeah, I think that they'd be served by doing it sooner rather than later, because I think that I don't want it to be. I don't want to be in 2025 and still leaving characters in different universes. Like, I want there to be some progress on them doing this going forward, because I think that you can. But the thing I always bring up is that, like, Thanos didn't have a scene for more than like 3 minutes until Infinity War. I think people overrate how much they seeded it beforehand, and I think that, like, it will be a mistake if they're still seeding this thing 5 years from now. You know, like, let's eventually make some motion on it.
You don't think Deadpool 3 is now going to be 3 hours of jokes about the strikes?
No, no, because I mean, I sure hope not.
It's gonna be in it, though. We all got to brace ourselves. They're gonna make a joke about the strike.
If Ryan Reynolds was on the picket line every day, the joke would be something that I would laugh at. But the joke is probably gonna be something like, "You wanted this movie sooner, but the SAG had to go on strike."
Ooh.
So, yeah, I don't love how much Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman were like, "Come on, let's just end this so we can make our Deadpool 3 again." Like, shut up. Didn't love that.
Yeah, it wasn't not their finest moment for sure. But yeah, before we wrap up, I want to get some final thoughts from everybody on just the Marvels in general. I'll go around the room. Jake, I'll start with you.
So I have to ask the question, because this is the thing that was debated on Discord. It was the first discussion Springthorpe and I had leaving the theater. Have Carol and Valkyrie, like, have they, you know?
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. I completely forgot about that.
Because I have two different takes, but I want to hear Leah and Cecelia first, because they would know better than I would.
So wait, so what are you asking?
Like, have they hooked up? Like, is there romantic something going on there? Because I'll say this, my TikTok feed has already been filled with edits that I did not expect to be done that fast.
Okay, so I know that this is a popular fan pairing, so it is a nod to that. God, they won't let these Asgardians have same-sex relationships, will they? Oh my God. These poor things. I mean, so she kissed her on the cheek, and then Carol was in a platonic marriage with a man. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know.
I mean,
they had it definitely feels like there's some romantic undertones or overtones where it was just like, I don't know. Valkyrie was very, very, like, romantic, nurturing person.
Well, and that is at bare minimum, that's because the two actresses are a fan of the ship and tweet each other back fan art constantly. So they're, I don't know, they're into it.
Yeah, they're down to party.
So my take was that either there's something going on there, or I could imagine, based on the way that Carol is characterized in the movie, that Valkyrie makes incredibly overt overtures towards it, and Carol doesn't notice. One of the two. Those are the two possibilities.
That's fun.
There's definitely a heavy flirtation that probably went on, and I don't know, like, there's no like official, I feel like, relationship as of yet, but I definitely do feel like it's either on the way or they had like a tryst and they haven't really like decided what they are yet.
It makes me genuinely mad that we're not, like, not even like in like a salacious way, but like, why is this not in the text? You know? Well, I mean, I've complained enough about Marvel not having romance and sex in it, but like, they clearly have so much energy. The fans clearly want it.
Remember when people said Love and Thunder was super gay, like in 5 different interviews?
Yeah.
And then it wasn't.
It wasn't. No.
No, it
wasn't. And it's like, they clearly, like, if this was not a property that needed to be sold in countries that they probably wouldn't like this in, if I was seeing the energy that those two characters had on set, I'm like, well, we got to write this in somewhere. Like, it just coming off the screen. And so anyway, that was just a question I had to ask because, you know, my mind's always in the gutter.
No, I feel you. But do you actually, like, was that like your final thought?
When you say it like that, no, I think that this is just like I think that this movie is, one thing I was really thinking about when I was leaving is this movie is gonna be a really good rewatch in comparison to a lot of other movies, because it actually, even though on the front end it requires base knowledge, the actual plot of the movie requires it's not connected to a ton of other stuff. It's nothing that happens in this movie is going to be made worse by future movies, if that makes sense. Like,
I agree.
This is, this a lot of the positive stuff I like about Phase 1 movies, where it actually felt pretty low stakes, even though technically speaking the sun was in jeopardy of being sucked away. But like even then, like I like that they didn't really spend that much. You never really thought it was going to happen, and you know it's not that kind of
Just
movie.
one
It's
son, who cares?
exactly. And so yeah, I think I'm gonna look forward to just throwing this on, and man, the hour 45, wonderful stuff. Just
It's perfect. It breezes. That's why I felt like it was
Mhm.
very. The pace was excellent. Leah, how about you? You got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I hope that this one will gain favor over time and that it will sort of age very well. I feel like it probably will. I already have seen a lot of people be like, "Oh, this was actually good." Like take sort of that approach to like, "I thought it
Mhm.
was going to suck and it was actually good."
Right.
Well, don't be a downer in the first place. So that is my thought about that. Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's gonna. I think we'll be happy with this. I was happy with it now. I think it's just gonna get better and better.
Wonderful stuff. And Cecilia, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I mean, there's a lot of things that make it a good rewatch. One is like that it's an hour and 45 minutes. Like, there'll be many nights in the future when, you know, Brent is out of town and I'll just be like, all right, kids, let's just have a chill movie night and you can still get to bed on time. So there's that. It does feel nice. It is lower stakes, but then also, like to Leah's point, the negative feed or the criticism that I've seen really just has to do with like it's flopping at the box office. Like I haven't actually
mm,
really seen any
mhm,
good or compelling critique against the actual content of the
mhm.
movie. And so I do think that it might be a slow burn for a lot of people, and Marvel's had a bunch of slow burns. Like there's a bunch of movies that people were like so or slept on in the beginning that have developed, you know, a
Mhm.
Yeah.
new love over time. And I think
Yeah.
that this easily
I
could be one of
I
them.
actually got a text from my dad last night that was like, "You saw the new Marvel movie? I saw people saying it might be the worst one." And I'm like, "Well, I'm like, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's not making a lot of money." And then, but then what I said is, and this thing I kind of always say now is like, "But I'm not in charge of Disney's balance sheet, so like,
Yeah.
why do I care?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mhm.
think that I think we spent a lot of time talking about why it underperformed at the box office, and it's important to understand. But I think that like, there's a way people get too invested in it as if it is more paramount to how you actually feel about it because
Yeah.
like yeah
I mean,
people
with
yeah
sorry, I was just gonna say, like
no
with this movie in particular, like what I saw was like, oh, they're gonna sell a bunch of Halloween costumes next year. Like, there's
Mhm.
gonna be all these little, you know, Monica Rambeaus and Miss Marvel's going around. Like, so especially with kids, it's gonna stick around. It's just not everybody wants to take their kids to the movie theaters. So
I've
like,
yeah
seen some people say the plot is nonsense, and I think I have to just agree to disagree.
yeah
Lady wants water, air,
mhm,
and sun.
yeah
3 other women, powers entangled.
yeah
They have a relationship. They've solved. Like it's not really that complicated.
right.
no I think people what I notice a lot because I'm someone who there's really no mainstream. There's no movie that's going to be released at 4,000 screens that's actually confusing. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
I think what happens is people actually just don't. Like, I can understand if you think you don't need to listen to what the characters say, you get confused. But, like, sorry, you're in a sci fi movie. You got to listen to the
Yeah,
things
I
the
don't,
characters
and
say.
I don't think the space politics is really any more complicated than putting on a Star Wars and they're in the middle, like there's an intergalactic conflict that you're
Mm-hmm.
getting just pieces of because you're being thrown into the middle
Yeah.
of it.
Mm-hmm.
We should be trained to
Yeah.
do this by this point.
Exactly.
By just movies in general.
Exactly. And, yeah, I mean, I understood Tenet, so that's like, I maybe, but
I mean, same.
I,
So we're of a different breed.
You're damn right. We're of a different. I've said before, the only mainstream movie I ever didn't understand the plot of was Atomic Blonde, but I think that movie never made sense ever. But anyway, yeah, I think that also it's like air, water, and sun, the most basic things. It's not like they're looking for a crazy resource.
And in case you didn't get it the first time, it's very easy to see the water pour through the portal.
I think I just want to say this. I came to the conclusion, even before the strike, that people were going to badmouth and
Yeah.
talk about this movie a
Mhm.
certain way anyway.
Yeah.
They were always going to do
Because
this.
they had also
And
come to
this,
that conclusion before the strike.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like I think the thing that really, sticks out to me is this just gave people a reason to spew whatever they were going to spew out. Also, like, I mean, I'll take it back to the end of Secret Invasion. Jake and I talked about it with Rod at the time. We were, you know, it seems like for whatever reason, and it happened over the last year, and then specifically Quantum Mania, it seems like they're trying to get Marvel out the paint. I don't know if it's Hollywood. I don't know if it's anybody specifically, but it's almost like they've seen enough. They're like, all right, well, this is like, because it's coming from everywhere. And most of the time, and you mentioned it earlier, Leah, as far as and the Cecilia as well, with the box office talk. When did we start analyzing all of our movies with just box office? Just that's it.
That's
Like,
it.
we're not talking about, oh, the movie was good, the movie was bad. Well, it made this amount of money, so therefore, but nothing about there was a strike that lasted 6 months. Nothing
Mhm.
about that these are one of the diverse women casts in this movie that didn't get to promote it at all
Mm.
until after the movie came out. There's none of that stuff. None of the stuff. You don't see it in any article. Not even one little piece of it. You don't see none of it. None at all. But you know what? It made $47 million. Marvel flops. That's what you see. And that really tells me all you need to know about the business and what and how media has changed in to that degree where the talk is so different. And honestly, it's like really like this dead non-human way of discussing going to theaters.
Sucks.
And I think what people don't understand is, like, a lot of people will compare stuff to um Barbie and Oppenheimer. That was a very unique event that occurred. If you look across, and it's not just Marvel that this is happening to, this is happening all across the board. Movies are struggling. The
Yeah.
pandemic changed stuff. I
Mhm.
think we have to acknowledge that at some point. But it seems like in the reporting, it's never acknowledged.
And
It's just like, again, which it leads me to believe, especially with Variety writing like 45 articles every 2 days about everything that, well, the Marvel's flop. What does the MCU do now? It's like they're gonna just, they obviously Disney has to figure out and get their ducks in a row on certain things that happen. We've seen a lot of articles with truth to them as far as what their business situation is and how they've gone about their business over the last few years. And clearly there has been some malfeasance slash just negligence in a lot of places. They have to adjust for that. But I do not like that this movie has to be the front facing,
yeah.
gets the all of the shit stain on it. Like, this has to be the movie that we got to do it when it's the three diverse women.
And
And
acting
that's
like
like,
Nia DaCosta's someone they took off the street, as if like John Watts didn't direct like 2 movies that made like $150 combined. But no, Nia
Yeah.
DaCosta
If
made
they're
a
not
Candyman movie that tripled its budget. She's not qualified.
grabbing
Jesus Christ.
television directors left and right. Yeah, I
it,
hate
I mean,
I hate that you
yeah.
have a business major to be a fan of movies. I hate having to know the difference between Bob Iger and Bob Chapek. They're both named Bob. I don't care. Seem bad in different ways.
It's also like,
Boring. I
Uh-huh.
want to talk
there's the
about movies.
exactly like
Yes.
it's
Right.
and the thing too is that, and I know Leah and you and I were talking about this at some point beforehand, that like the thing that's so frustrating about a lot of this talk is that so much of this talk about, like, specifically when people say that the reason the Marvel movies are failing or this one failed is because you need to watch a lot of stuff beforehand.
Yeah.
Which, the thing that frustrates me about that is the people who say that are not like single moms working 2 jobs, they don't have time. They're big dorks like us who have the time to watch all this shit too. They're just mad about it. Like, you know who never has complained about having to watch a lot of stuff? My dad, who watches fucking everything. He watched all of Bosch. He watched all of Reacher. He watches all of Jack Ryan. He also watches all of the Marvel stuff because he has the time.
Also,
Like, that is just so
people-
clearly not the issue.
People watched WandaVision. It was nominated for a lot of Emmys. It made a lot of
Mhm.
best of lists. It was Agatha all along. That
Yeah.
was a cultural moment. We can't act like it was.
Yeah, people forgot. Yeah.
Well, and like the whole emphasis just on
Mhm.
like we are looking kind of just at these material, like how much money it made. It's completely obscuring. I mean, to AC's point, the movie itself, but it's like nobody knows even how to look at a cultural object for what it is anymore. Like there's
Mhm.
no one can see this, you know, visually we saw this, you know, narratively this happened, all of it's just like this movie is in response to all these other things, and everything is just about, you know, the actors, the directors, the like all the behind the scenes politics. I'm like, this a thing was made, like a work of art, and I would call it art. A work of art was made, and nobody seems to know how to interact with a work. And I'm saying that now as kind of like a grieving English teacher at a college, where I'm like just trying to get people to interact with the work of art as it is itself, and it's like pulling teeth. And then when I'm like, well, it's doing this, this, and this, people are like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought of that. And it's really, it's sad. It makes me very sad because yeah.
Yeah. No,
And
no,
it,
I yeah, I completely feel you on that front. And the thing that I'll add about it, and I think it's just the way that people generally consume the media now, I think is a big part of this. I think the way that the reporting is done is now a big part of this, where we now know way, way more about what happens behind these sets and behind these scenes than we ever have. So I think it just allows for the conversation to be about something else besides the actual
Mm.
stuff that's on the screen. No, I mean, it reminds me of like when people talk about the difference between basketball and football in the way that it is covered by the media is
Mm.
that with basketball, you talk about the transaction, you talk about everything
Mm.
but the game. With this, we're talking about everything but the actual content
Mhm.
itself that comes out.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a big part of what's happening here. And it's really just like distorted the dialogue as far as everything that we're doing. And it just does not help the consumption of something like this, where it's just honestly just a good time and a lot of fun. And that's really should be the focus, but it never is at
Yeah.
this point.
And the two things I'll add to, you know, round it out is the thing that's frustrating about it is that some of the people who have this kind of view of it are people who they often will do it like performatively to say like the reason why they're shitting on the MCU is because they like care about other movies, which I'm sure they do, but it feels like their stance is almost as anti-art and entertainment as the people who control these corporations. Like if you're like using box office returns to like make a grand statement about the MCU, like that is as anti-art as, you know, anything David
Yep.
Zaslav's done. It just is.
Mhm.
And I will say that I genuinely do, because I people have been tweeting at me about it. I do feel bad about the No Guts, No Glory prediction I made, because it's definitely going to be right. And Leah, beforehand, like a couple weeks ago, I said that I thought that the Battle of Songbirds and Snakes was going to outgross the Marvels by over $100 million. And unfortunately, I think that number might be low. I don't feel good about it. But yeah,
It's pretty good. I've seen it, so
I've heard it's really good. My guy Frankie Lawrence, you know, he knows how to direct a movie. Hey, you're talking to someone who's Constantine is in his top 10 all time, so I'm very excited. But yeah, it's unfortunate. It's the whole concept of what is it? The correct if I'm wrong, but the glass cliff is the term where you give an opportunity to a person of color or a woman the moment that it's going to fall off. Like, of course, it just so it makes me so fucking mad. But yeah, I think the thing that makes me happy though is I actually have seen a lot more people say what Leah's saying. Like people who are not in film Twitter or whatever, the general consensus has almost always been like, yeah, that was a really good time. Like that was a good time. Yeah. You know, and I think that will give it a better legacy. I almost imagine like it feels like someone said that it's going to have a legacy like Birds of Prey, which I don't think is wrong necessarily.
My favorite superhero movie.
Yo, shout out to Birds of Prey,
which is a banger, and you know, and like obviously, I would rather Birds of Prey been successful in theaters in the same way I wish the Marvels was successful in its first run. But like, it's better to be that than not. And I think I really when someone made that comparison, I'm like, that's exactly it. That's exactly what we're looking at. Where you know the traditional people who see these movies didn't want to see it, and then the people who it's for will see it a couple years later and be like, oh shit, this is exactly what I've been looking for this whole time.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was The Marvels, the 33rd film in the MCU. It's fun talking about it with this wonderful panel this evening. Cecelia and Leah, want to say thank you for joining us this evening. Appreciate you guys. Cecelia, where can we find you? Where can we find what you're doing out here?
Well, more and more these days, you can find me right here. So that's super fun. No, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Cecelia M Stokes, and that's Cecelia M Stokes. This week, for as one of the Patreon episodes, I'm going to be trying something super experimental. I'm working on a research project with audiences, Latinx audiences, and fans of Spider-Man. And so the guys have graciously let me try out this new little research methodology. So Patreon plug there if you're interested in putting,
Appreciate
the university and the MC University pod, then that's where you can.
Glad we started doing it 5.5 years in.
It took us a little while, but we got there eventually. But yes, thank you, Cecelia. Appreciate you joining us as always. And Leah, Nerdalist Leah.
Yes.
Where can we find you and your work?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at Leah Marilla. What am I up to? Well, this week, at some point this week, I've got a piece at Polygon dropping about vampires for their Vampire Week that I'm very excited about, but I don't exactly know what day it's getting published.
Love vampires.
And then I also have some Hunger Games stuff for Teen Vogue coming up.
Nice.
For The Ballad, which is about a very girly girl in some violence. So I'd be intrigued.
I mean, when I saw people quoting your take about,
oh my god,
yeah, tell what I explain this.
I had a viral tweet from earlier this year where I compared the two, Katniss and Lucy Gray. Or I said Katniss is a hunter who's been put in a performance in her Hunger Games. Lucy Gray is a performer who has been put in a hunt in her Hunger Games. And that tweet has not only did it go viral, it has been reappropriated on Tumblr. There are TikToks about it to the point that Rachel Ziegler basically paraphrased it in interviews now. And, she could have come to that conclusion on her own as well. I'm not calling her a plagiarist, but it's been...
But she's also extremely online. And that's what I love about her, but she's extremely online.
She's an extremely online person. So that's been crazy.
No, awesome.
Congrats.
No, that's awesome. Man, looking forward to the Hunger Games. I think I might check that one out.
Haven't seen that one.
And of course, Jake Christie, our producer.
You can follow me on Twitter at the Jake Christie. Listen to my other podcast, Love at First Psych, where me and Andre Barrera are talking about the USA Network original series Psych. And I thought I had an extra plug, but yeah, just do the Patreon. We didn't do it earlier, But Cecelia, I'm really excited for Cecilia's thing. It's gonna be really cool. Getting some research together, and hopefully we're gonna do more shit like that. Might as well.
Yes, and that is patreon.com/MCUniversityPod. Bonus content. We got Hobbs and Shaw on the way. Subscriber mailbag on the way. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at AnthonyCanton_3. Follow the show at MC University Pod on all platforms. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I see the numbers going slightly up. We're going up a little bit at a time. I like to see that. Continue to do so as we continue to put these episodes on video. It's been a lot of fun doing that. And appreciate everybody for listening and supporting. 5-star the show on all different platforms, whatever you may do. And of course, for Leah, for Cecelia and Jake, I am Anthony Canton III. This has been Marvel Cinematic University, and we will talk to you next time. Higher, further, faster, baby.